The morning started like any other at Rosehill Academy. The sun rose slowly over the red brick buildings, shining through the big windows of the school. Birds chirped in the trees near the playground, and yellow buses lined up along the curb one by one. Children laughed, ran, and chatted as they rushed to class before the bell rang. Teachers stood near the front doors smiling and waving. But not everyone felt like smiling. In the middle of the crowd, a quiet girl stood by herself. Her name was Nia. She wore simple jeans, a purple sweater, and sneakers that had been cleaned many times but still looked worn. She had deep brown skin and long braids that reached just below her shoulders. She held her backpack tightly in front of her chest like a shield. No one said hello. No one smiled at her. Nia looked around. This was her first day. Her old school was in another state far away. Here, everything felt cold and new. She missed her grandma's porch. She missed the way her neighbors said good morning. She missed hearing music in the streets and smelling fresh cornbread through open windows. Here, everything was quiet and sharp. Even the kids' laughter felt different, like it wasn't meant for her. A group of girls stood near the big stone steps that led to the school doors. They were laughing loudly, tossing their shiny hair over their shoulders, and pulling out phones from bright pink bags. One of them, the tallest with light brown curls, turned her head and looked at Nia. The tall girl whispered something. The other girls turned too. They looked at Nia, then at each other, then laughed again. But it wasn't the fun kind of laugh. It was the kind that makes your stomach feel small. Nia turned away and started walking toward the building. She didn't want to start trouble. She just wanted to find her classroom and make it through the day. But her steps were slow, and her heart beat faster than before. Inside the school, everything looked fancy. The hallways were shiny and clean. There were framed photos of past students on the walls, all smiling in rows. Many of them wore medals and ribbons. Most of the faces looked the same. There were very few that looked like Nia. She walked past a tall trophy case. Her reflection looked back at her in the glass. She adjusted her sweater and kept walking. Her schedule said room 204, so she found the stairs and climbed them. When she entered the room, the teacher looked up and nodded. "You must be Nia. Welcome," the teacher said. Nia gave a tiny smile and sat at the only empty desk in the second row. Some kids looked at her. Some didn't. No one said a word. As the teacher began the lesson, Nia opened her notebook. She drew a little heart in the corner of the page. Then she started to write. She always wrote when she felt nervous. It helped her feel more like herself. She wrote, "I am here. I am quiet, but I am not small. I will grow, like the moon does, even when you do not look up." When the class ended, she closed her notebook and packed her things. As she stood, someone bumped into her from behind. Her backpack slipped from her shoulder. "Oh, sorry," said the same tall girl from before. But her voice didn't sound sorry. She smiled without her eyes and walked away with her friends. They whispered again. Nia picked up her backpack and walked slowly to her next class. At lunch, she sat by herself. She opened her lunchbox and took out a sandwich and an apple. At her old school, she sat with her cousin and their friends. They used to trade snacks and tell jokes. Here she had no one. She just ate quietly and looked out the window. Across the cafeteria, the tall girl was sitting with the others. They laughed louder now. One of them pointed at Nia's shoes. Another covered her mouth to hide a giggle. Nia heard the word poor and the word weird. She looked down at her sandwich. She wasn't hungry anymore. After school, most kids rushed outside, happy to leave. Nia walked slowly to the front steps. She waited alone. The tall girl passed her again. "So quiet," she said. "Do you even talk?" Nia looked at her. "Yes." The tall girl raised her eyebrows. "Well, don't be weird. Just saying." Then she laughed and walked away. Just then, a long black car pulled up to the sidewalk. It was not a normal car. It was shiny and very clean. A man in a suit stepped out and opened the back door. Nia didn't say a word. She just walked over, nodded politely, and got into the car. Some kids turned to look. The tall girl froze where she stood. She stared at the car. Her mouth opened just a little. Her friend whispered, "Who is that?" But no one knew. Not yet. Inside the car, Nia pulled out her notebook again. She wrote, "They don't know me. They don't want to. But I know myself. And that is enough. For now." The driver asked, "Everything okay today, miss?" Nia looked out the window as the car pulled away. She nodded slowly. It was just the first day. The car drove off, quiet and smooth, while behind her, the schoolyard buzzed with whispers and wide eyes. But Nia didn't turn around. She didn't need to. The next morning, the sky was cloudy. The air felt heavy, like it knew something was coming. Nia stepped out of the big black car and walked up the school steps without looking around. She had her notebook in her bag and a poem already forming in her head. She kept her eyes low and her steps even. She was used to being quiet. She was used to being careful. Inside the school, everything looked the same as the day before. The bright lights, the echo of voices in the hallway, the smell of floor cleaner and breakfast muffins. But something was different now. The tall girl from yesterday had noticed her car. And when people notice something they do not understand, they start to whisper. Nia passed a group of kids who were standing by the lockers. She heard one of them say something soft. The others looked at her, then looked away quickly. She did not know what they had said, but she could feel the words land on her shoulders like heavy raindrops. In her first class, she sat in her usual seat. The boy next to her kept sneaking glances. Finally, he whispered, "Was that your car yesterday? The big one?" Nia did not want to answer, but she nodded. "Are you like rich or something?" he asked. She looked at him, calm and steady. "I live with people who care about me," she said. He opened his mouth to ask something else, but the teacher walked in, and the class grew quiet. At recess, Nia sat on the bench near the far edge of the playground. There were swings, monkey bars, and slides, but she didn't feel like playing. She watched a little girl help her younger brother fix a shoe. She watched a boy kick a soccer ball too hard and run after it. She wrote in her notebook while her legs swung softly under the bench. Suddenly, a shadow fell over her page. It was the tall girl again. This time, she brought two others with her. One had freckles and the other had a bright green headband. "Well, well," said the tall girl. "Princess rides in a fancy car. Thought you were poor." Nia looked at her notebook and kept writing. "Too good to talk now?" the girl asked. Nia spoke, but her voice was quiet. "You do not know me." The girl rolled her eyes. "I know enough. You think you're special just because someone rich picked you." Nia closed her notebook and stood. Her knees were shaking, but her back stayed straight. "I do not think I'm special," she said. "I think I'm just trying to be okay." That made the other girls laugh. They laughed so loud it made two boys nearby turn their heads. Then the girl in the green headband stepped forward and reached for Nia's hair. "Are these real?" she asked, touching the end of one braid. Nia stepped back. "Do not touch me," she said, louder this time. A teacher's voice called from across the field, "Is everything all right over there?" The tall girl smiled sweetly. "Yes, ma'am. Just talking." The teacher waved and went back to watching the younger kids. The tall girl's smile disappeared once the teacher turned away. She leaned in close to Nia and said, "Keep writing in your little notebook. That's all you're good for anyway." Then she and the others walked off, laughing again. Nia sat back down. Her hands were shaking now. She looked at her notebook and saw that her last word was smudged. She closed it gently, then held it tight in her lap. Later, in the hallway between classes, Nia felt a hard bump on her shoulder. Her books slipped from her arms and scattered on the floor. She bent down to pick them up. As she did, someone walked by and said, "Oops." She did not even need to look. She knew the voice. As she picked up her notebook, a boy came over to help her. He had curly hair and wore glasses with one side taped up. "You okay?" he asked. Nia nodded, but not very strongly. "I'm Jonas," the boy said. "I saw what she did. You shouldn't have to deal with that." Nia gave a small smile. "It's okay." Jonas frowned. "No, it's not." They walked to class together in silence. That was the first time Nia did not feel completely alone that day. After school, Nia went to her locker. She opened it and froze. Her books were still there, but everything else was a mess. Papers were ripped. Her favorite pen was snapped in half. Her snack had been squished and smashed into the bottom corner. But that was not the worst part. On the inside of her locker door, written in red marker, were 3 words. They were ugly words. Words meant to hurt. Nia did not cry. She stared at the words for a long time, then took out her phone and took a picture. She cleaned up her locker slowly. She wiped the marker off with tissues and hand wipes from her bag. Took a long time. No one helped her. A few kids walked by and looked, but no one said anything. When she was finished, she sat on the floor beside her locker and took out her notebook. She wrote, "If I am paper, they try to tear me, but I am not paper. I am fire, and fire does not bend." That night, Nia sat at her desk at home. Her room was quiet. There were soft lights above her bed and photos on the wall. One showed her and her adoptive mother holding hands in front of a tall white building. Another showed her playing piano. Another showed her standing with her father in front of a flag. She smiled in that one, but now her smile felt far away. Her mother knocked on the door and peeked in. "How was school today?" Nia wanted to say something. She wanted to say everything, but the words were heavy in her mouth. "It was okay," she said. Her mother walked in and kissed her forehead. "You're stronger than you think." Nia nodded. When she was alone again, she whispered, "I don't want to always have to be strong." The next morning, Jonas was waiting by her locker. He handed her a small sticker that said "You matter" in green letters. "I made it last night," he said. "My mom runs a youth group." Nia took the sticker and smiled. "Thanks." Jonas looked around and leaned closer. "I don't like what they're doing to you. If you ever want me to go with you to the office, I will." Nia looked at him. "I don't think they'll do anything." "Maybe," Jonas said. "But you're not alone." "Not anymore." She nodded. That day something changed. Not in the school. Not in the teachers. Not in the bullies. But in Nia. She still felt scared. She still felt tired. But now she also felt seen. And that was the start of something new. The sun returned on Friday morning. It filled the sky with soft gold and brushed its light against the windows of Rosehill Academy. The halls were louder than usual because today was not a regular school day. Today was the Respect and Responsibility Assembly. The teachers had been talking about it all week. There were flyers taped to the walls. They showed smiling children, bright stars, and big words about kindness, fairness, and character. The students did not really care. They were just happy to leave class early. Nia walked into the school with her notebook clutched to her chest. She had drawn tiny stars on the cover the night before. She did that when she felt nervous. Each star meant one thing she hoped for: peace, courage, safety, a real friend, a moment to breathe. She walked past the others, quiet as always. As she reached her locker, she saw Jonas leaning nearby. He smiled and held up 2 fingers in greeting. She smiled back. She was starting to look for his face in the morning. Not many people made her feel safer. Jonas did. "You ready for the big boring assembly?" he asked. "Not really," Nia said. "Same," Jonas replied. "But I guess it is better than math." Nia gave a small laugh. That was enough to help her shoulders relax a little. As students began lining up by class, Nia walked slowly toward the auditorium with her class. The tall girl who had bothered her before was walking ahead of her. She was laughing again, as always, and talking loudly to her friends. Nia could not hear all the words, but she heard her own name once. That was enough. Inside the auditorium, the teachers guided everyone to their seats. The chairs were hard, and the lights above were bright. The principal stood at the front with a microphone in her hand. She wore a blue scarf and smiled too much. "Good morning, everyone," she said. The students mumbled a reply. "Today we are here to talk about what it means to respect others and to be responsible members of our school. We are proud of many of you, and we want everyone to remember the power of kindness." Some students clapped. Some just looked bored. One teacher read a short speech about honesty. Another student from 8th grade read a poem about doing the right thing. It was a nice poem, but most people were not really listening. Then a woman from the district came to speak. She talked about courage and fairness and said big words like empathy and accountability. Nia listened for a while, but her mind began to drift. Her notebook rested in her lap. She opened it quietly and read a poem she had written 2 nights ago. She had not shown it to anyone. The title was Invisible Until I Bleed. As she read the lines to herself, something bumped into her from the side. She looked up. The tall girl was standing beside her, pretending to look for something on the floor. "Oh no," the girl said with a fake voice. "I dropped my bracelet." She reached under Nia's chair. Her elbow brushed Nia's notebook. The book slipped from Nia's lap and fell open on the floor. Before Nia could grab it, the tall girl stood up with the book in her hand. "Oh, what's this?" she said loudly. People turned to look. The teacher on the end of the row frowned. "Please give that back." But the tall girl was already flipping through the pages. "Looks like someone writes poems," she said. Jonas stood up from the row behind them. "Give it back," he said. His voice was quiet but firm. The girl ignored him. She found the poem Nia had just been reading. She held it up. "This one's called Invisible Until I Bleed." "How dramatic." "Enough," said the teacher, walking over. The girl handed the notebook to the teacher with a smirk. "I was just trying to help." The teacher looked at the page, read a few lines, then stopped. She looked down at Nia. "Did you write this?" Nia nodded slowly. Her face felt warm. Her hands were cold. The teacher walked up to the microphone and said, "We were going to end the assembly with a short video, but I think it is more powerful if we listen to the words of one of our own students." Nia's heart began to race. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to be anywhere else. But the teacher began to read her poem. "You do not see me until I am bruised. You do not hear me until I am broken. You do not care until someone important says you should. I do not wear gold, but I carry my history. I do not have power, but I know my worth. I do not speak loud, but my silence is not weak. I bleed, but I do not fall." The room was silent, so quiet that even the air felt still. The principal cleared her throat. The teacher handed the notebook back to Nia with care. "Thank you for writing that," she said softly. Nia held the book close and looked down. She did not want the attention. She had written those words for herself, not for everyone else, not to be turned into a lesson. When the assembly ended, students filed out slowly. Some looked at Nia with new eyes. Some still whispered. The tall girl stayed behind a moment, then rushed out with her friends. Her face was tight. She did not laugh this time. Jonas walked beside Nia. "That was powerful," he said. Nia did not answer. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but her eyes were wet. In the parking lot after school, Nia walked to the sidewalk where the black car usually waited. Today it was already there. The driver stood by the open door as usual. But something was different. A figure stood outside the car, talking quietly to the driver. She was tall and calm. She wore a suit with a soft white blouse underneath. Her hair was pulled back neatly. Her face was strong and kind. The moment she saw Nia, she smiled wide and opened her arms. Nia walked toward her. The crowd behind her kept moving, but a few students slowed down. The tall girl stopped walking. Her mouth fell open just a little. Jonas whispered, "Is that?" Nia reached the woman and hugged her. The woman kissed the top of her head. "How was your day, sweetheart?" she asked. Nia did not answer with words. She just leaned into her. Students stared. One boy whispered, "That's the president. That's really her." Another said, "No way. That's the first lady. I saw her on TV." But it was true. The woman beside Nia was the first lady. The mother who had adopted Nia months ago. The woman who had taken her hand and called her daughter when no one else had. Nia looked over her shoulder and saw the tall girl still standing there, frozen. She turned back to her mother and got into the car. As they drove away, Nia looked out the window at the school. She did not smile. She did not wave. She just opened her notebook and wrote, "Now they see me." but only because she came. What happens when she leaves? Will I be invisible again? The next day came like any other, but it did not feel the same. The sun was still shining. The birds still chirped in the trees outside. The big black car still pulled up at the edge of Rosehill Academy's parking lot. But Nia no longer walked through the school doors as a girl no one knew. Now she was the girl everyone watched. Everyone whispered. Everyone wondered about. She took each step slowly as if the floor might shift beneath her feet. She clutched her notebook against her chest just like she always did, but now her arms shook just a little more. As she passed the hallway windows, her reflection followed her. She did not look different. Her clothes were still simple. Her hair still curled like it always did. Her face still held that same calm that she wore like armor. But inside her chest things were twisting. The whispers began the moment she walked into the hallway. This time they did not stop. She's the president's daughter. I heard she has her own bodyguard. She probably owns like 5 houses. No wonder she always looked so proud. She tricked us. She was acting normal. She doesn't belong here. That last one stung the hardest. She had heard those words before. In foster homes. In schools where she stayed for just a few months. On sidewalks where neighbors frowned when she walked by. But hearing them now, in a place she had tried so hard to call her own, made her feel smaller than ever. Jonas met her by her locker as he usually did. Today he was holding a purple folder. "Made you a mix of poems I thought you'd like," he said with a smile. "From Langston Hughes to Amanda Gorman." Nia gave a small smile. "Thank you," she whispered. He looked around. "They won't stop staring," he said. Nia nodded. "I know. You want to talk about it?" She shook her head. Jonas did not press. He just walked beside her in silence. In first period, the teacher paused the lesson and looked directly at Nia. "We are proud of all our students," she said gently. "Especially those who come from strong homes and show strong character." Nia knew what she meant. She knew that even kind words could feel sharp when they were meant for show. During lunch, she sat at her usual table. Or tried to. 2 girls were already sitting there. "Sorry," one of them said. "This table's full." "But there are 2 seats," Nia said. "Not anymore," the other girl replied without looking at her. Nia turned and walked away. She sat on the end of a bench near the trash cans. Jonas found her later and sat with her, even though the smell was bad and the bench wobbled. "It's not fair," he said. "It never was," Nia replied softly. By the end of the day, things got worse. In the hallway near the science wing, someone had scribbled words on the wall in black marker. It was not Nia's name, but it was meant for her. It said some people get special because of luck, not because they earn it. There was a drawing next to the words. A stick figure with curly hair and a crown falling off its head. Nia stared at it. Her breath caught in her throat. A teacher passed by and stopped. "Who did this?" the teacher asked the nearby students. Everyone shrugged. No one spoke. The teacher sighed and went to get a cleaning cloth. Nia stood there until Jonas pulled her gently away. In the office that afternoon, the principal asked to speak with her. "You have become quite the focus of attention," the principal said with a smile that felt too bright. "It's important you know that we support you here." Nia nodded. The principal leaned forward. "There are reporters calling. News stations. Some want to talk about your poem. Some want to know more about you. Your mother's team called to say no interviews for now." Nia nodded again. "But we want you to feel welcome," the principal continued. "Maybe you would like to speak at our school board meeting next week. A few words about your experience. A chance to inspire others." Nia looked at her hands. "I do not want to be an example," she said. The principal looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "I just want to be a student," Nia said quietly, "like everyone else." That evening, Nia sat at her bedroom window and looked out into the dark. Lights twinkled on the street below. Her mother knocked once and came inside holding a mug of warm tea. "You've been quiet," she said. Nia nodded. "Would you like to talk?" "No," Nia said. "I don't want to talk. I want people to stop staring. I want them to stop thinking I changed. I haven't changed. I'm still me." Her mother sat beside her. "I know," she said. "They only care now because of you." Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do you know why I chose you?" Nia looked up. "I saw strength," her mother said. "Not just the quiet kind. The kind that shows up in poems. The kind that survives being ignored. You were already whole when I met you. I just gave you space to grow." "But they hate me now," Nia said. Her voice cracked. "Not just the bullies. The others too. They think I'm pretending, or showing off, or lucky, or fake." Her mother pulled her close. "You are not lucky. You are worthy. You are not pretending. You are surviving. And your truth is not too much for this world. If it feels like it is, that means the world still has work to do." Nia cried then. Not loud. Just soft tears that slid down her cheeks like secrets. Later that night, she opened her notebook and began to write again. This time she wrote not just for herself but for all the kids who had ever been told they did not belong. For all the children whose names were skipped over. For every whisper that turned into a wound. The next day, she walked into school with her notebook open. She walked to the hallway wall where someone had written the cruel words. She looked at the new message that had been added next to it. This one was different. It was written in blue. It said, "But some people shine because no one can dim them." Nia looked around. She saw Jonas down the hall. He gave her a thumbs up, and for the first time in days she smiled. Not because things were better, but because her light had not gone out. It had only just begun to burn. Monday morning came with a soft rain. The sky was gray and the school buses made long lines across the wet parking lot. The sound of water dripping from the trees made everything feel slower. But inside Rosehill Academy, something had changed. It did not happen all at once. It began with a letter on the main office door. It was printed neatly and taped for everyone to see. It was titled "To the Students Who Feel Invisible." No one knew who wrote it, but Nia did. It said, "You are not too quiet. You are not too strange. You are not too dark. You are not too late. You are a whole person, and you deserve space. You deserve peace. You deserve to be seen, just as you are." People stopped to read it. Some nodded. Some walked away. But some stayed longer, as if the words were holding them gently. Then came the morning announcement. Instead of the usual cheerful voice of the student president or the principal reading the lunch menu, the microphone crackled with something new. It was the voice of the librarian. She said, "Today we honor Student Voices Week. We are beginning with a poem written by one of our very own students. Her name is Nia. Please listen." The same poem that had been read during the assembly played again, this time with soft music in the background. It echoed through every hallway and classroom. Some students listened with quiet respect. Some teachers wiped their eyes. And some students who had never looked Nia's way before now turned to her with something that looked like understanding. But not everyone. In the second hallway near the art room, the same tall girl was standing with her friends again. She did not laugh this time, but she watched Nia with cold eyes. When Nia passed, the girl stepped forward. "Hey," she said, "do you think you're better than us now?" Nia stopped. She turned and looked at her, not with anger, but with steady eyes. "No," she said, "but I think I'm better than the way you treated me." For a moment, the hallway was silent. The tall girl opened her mouth but did not speak. Nia did not wait. She walked away. That afternoon, the school board meeting took place in the library. Parents came. Teachers came. News cameras showed up outside but were not allowed in. The principal asked Nia one more time if she wanted to say something. She almost said no. But then she remembered all the times she had been quiet because she was scared. And she remembered the poem, the hallway, the notebook, the voices of kids who still sat alone every day, hoping not to be noticed. She could not stay quiet anymore, so she walked to the front. She stood behind the small wooden podium with a glass of water and her hands shaking. She looked out at the room. She saw Jonas in the second row. Her mother near the back with her hand over her heart. Teachers she had never spoken to were watching. The principal leaned forward. So did the tall girl who had come with her mother. Everyone was waiting. Then Nia spoke. "I used to think silence was safe," she began. "That if I stayed quiet, people would leave me alone. But I have learned that silence does not always keep you safe. Sometimes it lets others decide who you are." She paused. "I am not just a name, not just a skin color, not just someone's daughter. I am a person, with thoughts, with feelings, with poems that spill out when the world forgets to see me." She opened her notebook and read, "We do not need your spotlight. We only ask you not to block our sun. We do not ask to be lifted, only to stop being pushed down. We are not shadows. We are not echoes. We are here, and we will speak." When she finished, the room was silent for a long time. Then a teacher clapped. Another followed. Soon, the room filled with applause. Not loud and wild, but deep and steady, like rain that nourishes the ground. The next morning, Nia walked through the front doors of Rosehill Academy holding her notebook as always. But this time, when she passed the hallway windows, she saw not just her reflection. She saw Jonas walking beside her. She saw 3 girls wearing shirts that read "Be kind to every voice." She saw a sign on the bulletin board that said "Student Stories Wanted." Later that week, the school created a poetry wall. Students were invited to share their own stories. One boy wrote about being judged for having an accent. A girl wrote about her little brother who could not speak but smiled with his whole face. Even the tall girl left a short note that simply said, "I am learning." Nia smiled when she saw it. Not because everything was perfect now, but because truth had walked into the light and stayed there. That weekend, Nia sat at her desk by the window again. The sun was shining across her notebook. Her mother sat on the couch nearby reading a book. Jonas had sent her a new poem that morning. The world outside was still loud and unfair sometimes. But Nia was no longer invisible, and she would never be again. She opened a new page and wrote, "Some people use power to control. Some use silence to hide. But the strongest ones use their voice to open every door and leave it wide for others." She smiled, closed the book, and leaned back in her chair. Her story was just beginning, and now it was yours too. Glowing star if this story touched your heart or made you feel stronger. Take a moment to like it. If you believe more stories like Nia's should be told, please subscribe for more. Your voice matters, your heart matters, and your story deserves to shine too.